And welcome. The stage is set for the high-stakes G20 summit. Leaders of the world's 20 biggest economies have reached at the venue of the G20 meet in Rome for the welcome ceremony. The first session of the G20 summit will begin shortly. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived for the summit. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi invited Prime Minister Modi with a hug. Prime Minister Modi arrived for the summit right after meeting Pope Francis. He has invited Pope Francis to India. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson have also arrived for the summit. This G20 summit is being viewed as particularly important. This is because it begins just a day ahead of the COP26 climate summit, which will be held in Glasgow. World leaders are under pressure to make headway in tackling global warming, climate change, and the global economy will be on top of the agenda at G20. Draghi had called for a G20 commitment on the need to limit the rise in temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, which is the most ambitious target outlined in the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who will be hosting the COP26 summit, earlier gave a dire warning of what could happen if the world failed to act. The two leaders who will be absent from the G20 summit will be Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping. China is the world's biggest polluter. The country is responsible for more than a quarter of all carbon emissions. It has been accused of sidestepping calls to stop building new coal-fired power plants. Well, WION's principal diplomatic correspondent Sidhant Sibal is live from the Vatican City. Thank you very much for joining us at this hour. The stage is set for the summit. It's now go green, quite literally. What can we expect from the first day of the deliberations between world leaders at the high-profile summit?
Well, the first day will be focusing on issues, as you pointed out, on climate change. We know that climate is dominating the agenda here at the G20, and this G20 meeting coming just before the Glasgow climate meeting, the COP26 meeting, and the focus will be on arriving some kind of consensus. We know that there are calls that India should announce its net zero emission target, but India has been pointing out that India has been taking a lot of initiatives when it comes to fighting the climate change. Energy efficiency is one pillar of India's environment policy. The other pillar is how India can increase the share of renewable energy. There's a target of 450 gigawatt of energy, renewable energy by the year 2030. That remains a top focus, something that has been pointed out by the Indian side at various organizations, various multilateral events, and this time it won't be different as well. The Indian side is expected to highlight its commitment towards fighting the scourge of climate change, but there are other factors as well. One, of course, is climate financing. There are calls by the developing countries that developed world should commit more to climate financing, while the developed world is keen that countries like China and India announced phasing out of coal, something which is essentially very difficult right now, given both these countries are part or are growing. They are developing countries and need more energy, while the West has already developed its infrastructure and power needs.
Well, Sidhant, this summit comes a day before the COP26 meeting in Glasgow. Even though climate change will be in focus at the G20, what will be the challenge for the presidents and heads of states when it comes to issues of climate agreements and climate policies?
The biggest challenge, of course, is formation of consensus on divisive factors like phasing out of coal, like climate financing. And whenever there is a large grouping, the larger the group is, the difficult it is to achieve a consensus, because there are diverse set of interests and diverse set of working for various countries. We know that while United Nations has been working a lot, it is seen dysfunctional, particularly during the COVID crisis. There, of course, G20 played an important role fighting the COVID crisis, coming up with consensus. In fact, the Indian Prime Minister gave proposal to Saudi Arabia host last year on hosting the meetings, and there were 2 emergency summits as well of the G20 on fighting COVID crisis, and there were strong actions taken by the G20 grouping. So there are high expectations from G20 when it comes to the climate issue as well, commitments and how these countries can come up with consensus. We know that officials have been burning the midnight oil. The Sherpas of the 20 countries have been working, making sure that there can be a consensus, but we can only get to know the final outcome only on Sunday evening.
Live from the Vatican City, thank you very much, Sidhant Sibal.